one of the points that he made in his speech was that hypocrites like them needed to be blasted off the face of the earth. Now you can hear this yourself on tape. Now actually, there's a tape that you can hear, but the point of this is that obviously that's a little bit different than telling somebody, to leave this man alone. The truth of the matter is that at best, Elijah Muhammad sent mixed signals with regard to Malcolm. And I think that was one of the problems in all that, because during this period of time, and perhaps today, the FOI worked and moved based on post-suggestion. That is, you just give out a certain amount of energy. You don't necessarily say, I want you to go do this and do that. You say certain things, and then the FOI person picks up the energy. Obviously, when you hear things like that, you run the risk of certain people picking up energy, even if, now suppose for the sake of argument, that's not, it was just figurative. He wasn't really meaning that. But you run the risk of people picking up that energy. In fact, Norman Butler, Norman 3X Butler, who was one of the brothers who did time, who was a former lieutenant at Mosque No. 7, he talks about in June 1964 attending an FOI meeting, right before Elijah Muhammad spoke at the Armory on June 28, 1964, in which Elijah Jr. came forward and told, let's go, told him to go knock on Malcolm's door and knock on the walls of his home and beat, and let him come tumbling down and cut out his tongue and send it to him. He'll put it in an envelope and stamp it approved and give it to the messenger. The problem with that is that, once again, if we're dealing with post-suggestion, and keep this in mind, Elijah Muhammad Jr. was generally viewed as the voice piece of his father during this period of time, then again, that's not, I don't think most people listening, certainly not Butler, and I talked to a few other people who were there, that obviously, people are not going to interpret that to mean, leave this man alone. So the point of all of this is to say that at best, and then Elijah Muhammad spoke right after that, the next day or so, and it wasn't like he came forward and said, okay, what Junior said yesterday, I want y'all to disregard because he wasn't really speaking for me. No. Elijah Muhammad then went forward and said things in a similar way. So the truth of this, and the point that I'm just trying to make, is that at best, Elijah Muhammad sent mixed signals with regard to Malcolm. Now, one other point that he said, and this would be the last point that I want to address that he said, is that he said that Farrakhan is the person most qualified to really address this issue. And, I concur. In fact, I think that one of the things that needs to happen, and I think the sooner the better, is that I think Farrakhan really does need to deal with this. When I was in D.C. not long ago, they were interested in me debating somebody, from the nation as far as Malcolm's assassination, and my position was, I will debate anybody. I don't mind. In fact, when I was first contacted by Herman, my advice was, why don't you just let me and Conrad debate if that's what you want to do? I don't mind that. But my point to them was that if you're going to get anybody, you need to get Farrakhan, because at best, any of his ministers, all they're going to basically do is what he tells you to say. Farrakhan does, in fact, need to deal with these issues, and he needs to deal with them in a serious way and not rely upon his ministers, as articulate as they are, as brilliant as they are, as intelligent as they are, as capable as they are. Farrakhan, not his ministers, need to be able to deal with this issue. And they don't necessarily need to deal with it with me. He can deal with it, with some of our other leaders and stuff. But the point of it is that it needs to be done. And a lot of times we really don't go very far in situations like this, because unless somebody has really done a whole lot of work on this and a whole lot of research, and see, Farrakhan, again, because he was somebody who was in all of that, at best, all somebody is going to do is they might go through my book or something, and they might come up with, with a problem or one, one mistake or something like that or whatever, and then, they got me. But that doesn't address the issue. But that doesn't address the issue with regard to accountability. It doesn't address the issue with what do we learn from this? Because see, that's what bothers me right now, based upon the walkout and stuff, is what exactly is it that we as a people learn when we have situations like this? And I'll be the first to admit, yes, this is a very sensitive issue, but you know what? It ain't just a sensitive issue just with the Nation of Islam. It's also a sensitive issue to those people who appreciate Malcolm X. But what exactly is it do we learn when all we do is just kind of like close our mind? Oh, he's going to say, I was accused before I even got, I should go last because that condo is going to do this and that. The problem right now is that if the goal really is to try to deal with Malcolm's assassination and stuff, then at some stage of the game, we're just going to have to be honest. In other words, where we made mistakes, and I'm talking about we as African people during, in 1965, not the Nation of Islam. When we as African people made mistakes, we need to be able to look at those mistakes so that eventually we can move on. Because you know what's sad? What's sad is that here we are 30 years later. The only reason that a Kabila Shabazz situation can exist is because we had not dealt with this issue before. That's why. And what's sad is that if this latest, situation, since this thing has happened, is any indication, is that we're not really dealing with it right now. And so, I guess it'd be interesting. Hell, next year is the 31st anniversary. Let's see what comes out the woodwork with regard to that. We can resolve a lot of these problems. We can resolve a lot of these problems if we're just honest. Farrakhan historically has went back and forth. You can find speeches in which Farrakhan basically is bragging. Yeah, we killed them, and whose business is it of you? And then sometimes we can find Farrakhan not bragging and saying they were all agents. And sometimes we can find Farrakhan and say, yeah, I contributed to the atmosphere and stuff, but we didn't kill them because Allah Muhammad told us not to kill them and stuff like that. That does not contribute to us resolving this issue either. So the point of all of this is to say, if the goal is to resolve the issue, it's going to take us just basically being honest. Once and for all, and then, you know what? I suspect that once we start doing that, we're going to reach a point real soon in which this will no longer be an issue for us. And you know what? It's real simple. It works like this. It's real clear that they came out of the Newark Mosque. It's clear. And even if all of them were agents, the Nation of Islam still has a responsibility in order because they use their vehicle to kill the man, okay? So let's just recite that real quickly. But this is what's interesting. If we can just deal with this on a serious tip, which will basically just require, okay, yeah, we made a mistake, It was wrong. And it was wrong. Because one of the great contradictions in all of this is that, and even with the wolf tickets, we always hear this and stuff. Isn't it kind of ironic, you think, that in many ways, take somebody like me, in many ways, it's kind of interesting. Here I am, I'm in my early 30s. I've been struggling since I was 12 years old for my people. And right now, I got brothers in this audience right now worried about my security. And it's kind of ironic, that historically, we have an organization historically, very organized in many ways, but yet historically, the only people that they've ever really went after historically has been people who look just like everybody in this audience. Something's wrong with that. We need to minimize contradictions. And what I would suggest to you, and I'm especially speaking to the brothers from the FOI, what I would suggest to you is